Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mellissa Thomas of Florida National News coming to you with this session of the FNN Politics and Power series. And today we're going to be interviewing a candidate for the Orange Soil and Water Conservation District. I know that's a mouthful, but we're actually interviewing a candidate for seat 5, which is Alaina Slife. So we're going to bring her on without further ado, and she's going to be able to share with you her backstory. And of course, as with any episode of our series, we're going to make sure to educate you guys, let you guys know what her vision is for the Soil and Water Board, particularly as it relates to her responsibility should she be elected, what her thoughts are on climate change and where we are right now in the country, particularly with the wildfires going on out west, and basically her steps going forward. So without further ado, I welcome Alaina Slife to the show. How's it going?
Hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem, no problem. So first, before I even get into your bio, I ask this of all of the guests that come on the show, but how have you and your family been handling the pandemic? And for you as a candidate, how has it affected your campaign?
I think the pandemic, so much like other crises that we face, really show the privilege that each of us hold. And so throughout this pandemic, I've been working from home. And although my husband, lost work for a little while, he's gotten back to work. And so I have been, thank heavens, very, not as affected as many of my peers. And so, luckily most of my family has not been affected. And, it affects us all mentally, but my heart really goes out to those who are being directly affected by the crisis.
For sure, for sure. And in terms of, you campaigning, were you able to kind of interact with people before things before the pandemic hit in earnest, or were you pretty much still doing things remotely the whole time anyway?
No, before the pandemic, can you hear me? There's like a loud noise now.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, you're good though.
Okay, give me just one.
You're good.
You want me to tell him to stop?
No, you're fine. Like we can hear you. You're good.
Okay, sorry. Before the pandemic, I definitely did a lot more community outreach. It wasn't specifically campaign related. For the past 4 years, I've just really enjoyed connecting with the community, seeing the different initiatives that people are working on. So it used to be a lot more in person. But now, luckily, a lot of the meetings that have been scheduled are available online. So we're able to connect in that way. And it's actually, I think, helped in some ways, because if you can't attend a meeting right now, you can get the video recording, right? You can still see what's going on because things are being recorded and then published. So it's been helpful in some ways.
Got you. Cool. And, thank you for sharing that. And just to dig in a little bit, just kind of share your backstory for our audience. Of course, this is your first time running for office, so kind of help our audience have a better perspective of who you are, where you're from, the things that are kind of near and dear to you, like the causes that you're really passionate about.
Absolutely. So I was not born here in Florida. I was born in London, but I've lived here since I was 1 year old. I grew up in Longwood and Lake Mary. And my whole life, I've been drawn towards public service and also, speaking up for those who seem to be voiceless, right? The voices that are unheard. And that's something that until my adult life, I did not realize I had been doing my whole life. So that's something that for me has always been kind of part of my personality. And also, my mother loved to kayak at Wekiva. And so when it comes to my friends, I'm kind of known as like the kayaker. I'm always go kayaking, check out all the different springs that Florida has to offer. So I'm just really a nature person. I'm a gardener. I love to be outside. I love to, have gatherings outside and get people together. And then I went, I grew up in Longwood Lake Mary. I went to school both at Seminole Community College when it was a community college, and then USF for my bachelor's degree in management information systems. Okay. Then I moved back to Orlando, and since then I've lived all around Orlando and gotten deeply ingrained in the social justice community here, and realized all the incredible things that our community partners are are moving, right? I was going to say are trying to make move, but are moving. There's been incredible initiatives that we've been able to pass. I mean, we can see from the city of Orlando that there are people here that are pushing for sustainability and that are pushing for, healthy environment. And so it's been beautiful to grow up in this community and get to have this community support me and also be able to support my community.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that, for kind of painting that bigger picture for us. So given your history in service, if you will, in being in the community, and, your love for the environment, particularly, water resources, kind of talk about your focus on that in terms of fighting for resources. You had participated in a protest in the Nellen, in terms of the pipeline. Just kind of talk about that, kind of your history with that.
Absolutely. So, my first protest that I ever went to and really was involved in was actually for Trayvon Martin. And that really, made me realize that we have to show up for our communities. And so when the Dakota Access Pipeline was being built, and the atrocities that happened around it were happening, I heard about a local protest at Lake Eola that was for the DAPL pipeline. And when I attended, actually, one of my friends from high school, Alyssa, she had a sign that said, "Stop the Sable Trail Pipeline." And I was like, what is this? And it's a pipeline, a natural gas pipeline that was built through Florida. And, it endangered and is, endangers our natural spaces. It's built through the limestone that creates our aquifer. And so when I heard about this, I was appalled. And I knew that I had to do whatever I could to support the initiative. So the next, there was another Dakota Access Pipeline protest that was like a national day. So I reached out to the organizer, who's Kay Smith, and she said to me that she was not going to host the protest, but that I could if I felt called. And so I did feel called, and I decided to host the protest. And through that, it became clear that we needed more education about what's going on here locally. So many people were focused on what was going on in North Dakota, which of course is incredibly important, but we have got to fight these local fights because our water is also at risk. And so through that, it started as like networking, finding out what different people are doing, and it really started as like an education initiative where we printed out flyers and we would stand at Lake Eola each Sunday and we would talk about what was going on. Through that, different people came and said, then there was similar to the much smaller, but similar to the water camp in North Dakota, we had a camp in Live Oak. And so some of us went up there, supported the camp, supported some direct actions to try to really stop the building of the pipeline. And we realized, we had support from the Sierra Club, we had support from a lot of people, but the pipeline still got built. The fracturing of our limestone still happened. And it was eye-opening to me. And it was a painful process, I'll be honest, to see that we have so many people that are facing this really detrimental hazard. They are speaking up for themselves. This pipeline went in the backyards of many of our neighbors, right? And even though they raised their voice, the energy company basically won that fight for the time being, right? And I also saw in that process that an extra, I think it was more than a mile. I think it might have been at 3 miles. They went around rich neighborhoods to put the pipeline into low-income Black and brown neighborhoods. And that to me was such an eye-opening moment that showed that when we have, low-income, marginalized communities, they're much less able to stand up for themselves, right? They don't have the time off of work to go to commission meetings all the time. They don't have, people supporting them, taking care of their kids so that they can reach out to commissioners and speak with them and advocate for themselves. And it really showed me the disparities that we're facing when we're looking at, curbing the effects of climate change. Like, how do these big polluters, how are they allowed to operate? And it's because they are strategic, right? They target people who are not as able to stand up for themselves, do not have the resources, right? Because they knew that if they put that pipeline in that rich neighborhood, they would have had a lot of backlash. So my whole, experience with that showed me a lot. And it also showed me that climate change is an incredibly intersectional issue, right? It affects the same communities that are affected by, the class issues that we face, the racism and discrimination, right? We face all these issues and they're very intersectional. The same people are being targeted. So it showed me that when we're fighting one fight, we've got to be fighting all the fights so that we can uplift our communities.
All right, so that's actually a good transition into the next question in terms of what makes you the best candidate. But we're going to get into that when we take a quick commercial break, guys. So stay tuned. We will be right back after this break.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, we are back with our conversation with Orange Soil and Water Conservation District candidate Alaina Slife. I'm always tickled by that title because it is so long. But ladies and gentlemen, it is an important position. So I did want to, kind of get into that universal question, right? For anybody that's running for office, like, why should I bubble your name in on the ballot? So just kind of share that with our audience. Why do you feel that you are the best candidate for seat 5?
Absolutely, thank you. I got to do a debate with my counterparts, my opponents last night, and it's very clear that we all care about conserving our natural resources, but our approach at tackling these issues is very different. And I think that people should vote for me because I focus on the community, right? I have spent my time with the community, learning what the needs are, and understanding that I don't make up the answers myself, right? It's important for me to be involved in my community so that we can come up with the solutions together and so that we can act on these solutions together and so that all players are brought to the table. Some of you might know about community organizing. And this is something that was new to me a few years ago, but really taught me that you have got to communicate with people, right? You have to bring them on your side before anything's going to move. And so that's some experience that I really have had, especially over these past 4 years, but even longer than that, bringing community partners together. One of the things that I did many years ago is, working on coalition building. And it's difficult, but it's vitally important that we bring, all the different stakeholders to the table so that we can be, on the same page when we're creating these solutions, because they're not going to be effective if we're not all working together. So that's some of my experience. And I think that my focus on community and kind of a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach makes me the best candidate for this seat.
Okay, and put a little bit of flesh on the coalition building for us. Like, can you name a specific experience where you were able to do that? Just kind of share that.
Yeah. So around the time of the Sable Trail pipeline, I think it was, a little bit after, and I had gone to, Green Party meetings, Ideas for Us, all these incredible groups around Orlando that are doing incredible things. And I realized they're not necessarily working together, right? There's a lot of overlapping issues that could be uplifted by both, and the work is being done in two places. So a few friends and I worked on something that we called the Cooperative Coalition for Change, the CCC, right? And I'll be honest, my eyes were rosy at the time. I thought, this is going to be, easy, right? And one of our community members came to me and said, Alaina, you can try this, but just know that it's not easy, right? It takes a lot of work. And we did a lot of work. We brought together, Food and Water Watch, different groups from around the state that care about Florida's environment, and different issues, right? The tangential issues that we were facing. And so first we started like a newsletter, like, okay, these are the different people that have signed on. This is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. And then we had, a couple really good meetings, especially the one like culmination meeting, which was really good, that I really was proud of it, because we brought together so many of these different groups, and they were able to present to each other and say, this is what I'm working on. This is how I could use help. This is how you can support. And just so that everyone's like working from a place of understanding of what else is going on in our ecosystem. And so through that experience, it was really eye-opening. I think it was very successful, but it was not long-standing because I did not understand the amount of work that goes into getting people to really collaborate. And so at the time, I had not created the network, like enough people really working on that initiative. I thought that I could kind of do it myself. And so it was a learning experience for sure. Even though I believe it was very successful, the flags that were raised for me, I now understand much more strongly, right? Like there are community partners that are less willing to work together, right? Like it's going to take a lot of organizing to get those people on the same page with us, and that's okay, right? That's what relationship building is, right? So through all of this, I learned that we need deeper relationships with each other. We need to create a level of trust, a level of understanding, and a level of solidarity that shows that not only do we want you to stand up with us, but we're going to stand up with you. So that's some lessons that I learned and that I've been using, over the years to continue to grow that relationship pool, right? Like we have to have deeper relationships with each other. But when we do that, we really can work together and uplift each other's issues and make it much more effective.
Now, to that point, because you mentioned something important in terms of the importance of connection, how do you navigate that now, given the pandemic and the fact that so many of us are still required to be virtual like this? I mean, obviously, schools have reopened, public schools have reopened, some colleges have reopened, but there's still a large part of the population that still isn't venturing out. So how do you kind of reconcile that now that, a lot of us are still physically separated?
And what's amazing to me is so often the answers are so much more simple than we expect, right? For me, it's been phone calls, right? We can post something online. I can tag you. You can know I exist. I can text you and let you know what's going on. But when I reach out to you via phone, when we talk, and when I do really care about what's going on with you, right? Like I want to know what's going on in your life. I want to be there for you in this time. And that creates a much deeper connection, right? I've noticed that people are like, oh, just text me. And it's like, I love phone calls because I want to get the answer to whatever I'm asking, but I also want to know what's going on with you, right? Like we are all facing not only a health crisis, but a mental health crisis. We are all feeling very alone. And so we have got to show each other that we're not alone, that we're right here, that we're going to be together, and remind each other that hopefully this is not forever, right? And then also, when you can, for me, I've gotten to at least see some of my close friends and be there for them. And it's been vital, right? It's been vital for us to really be there for each other, whether it's at a 6 feet distance with masks on, or if a couple of us have hung out just as friends and we've hugged each other, and because we've needed that, right? Like I needed some hugs. But for those that are in a position where they can't, which is totally understandable and very noble for people to be really putting themselves on the line for others, we need to continue to reach out via phone and chit chat. We all need to laugh, right? We all need to just have those deeper relationships where we show how much we actually care about each other.
Absolutely, for sure. And then a last follow-up question on that particular topic is how do you normally navigate those conversations where you're dealing with someone that doesn't agree with you and is not necessarily on board with you? How do you normally persuade them, or maybe not even persuade them necessarily, but how do you kind of bridge that gap between the opposing ideas?
Right. And I like that you said it that way, because the truth is that my goals are not always to just persuade you of what I think is right, right? We are in a learning journey together. And so if I come to the table saying, I'm going to need you to figure this out and I'm going to be telling you what you need to learn, that's not a real relationship. Right. I believe I come to the table as both a teacher and a student, right? I am here to learn from others, and I am willing to understand your side. I think I'm an incredibly empathetic person. That's just how I am. And it's funny because people are like, how can you, there are people with very different political views than myself, but that doesn't make them a bad person, a horrible, a villain. They're not a villain. They have different ideas. And what is incredible to me is that people who have such different ideas, a lot of us are working towards the same goals. So how do we humble ourselves? I think coming to the table with a little humility makes a big difference. And then work through it, right? Like, I know the things that I believe in, and I know my experiences, and that's why I feel the way I feel. So how can I help you understand where I'm coming from and learn more about where you're coming from, and let us find that middle ground that works for us, right? There's no reason that we have to have one person right and the other person wrong. I don't even fully believe in right and wrong, right? Like, we have differences. We have ideas that are contradictory, but that doesn't mean that we can't work together. And so coming to the table with that understanding rather than an agenda necessarily, right? Like, of course, I want to have my side of the story heard. Of course, I have things that I'm advocating for, but I'm not going to tell you that you have to agree with me. You don't. You have your own ideas, and I respect that you have your own ideas. And I think that if we talk about them, that we will come to some common ground. We will be able to bridge that gap, because at the end of the day, we have got to remember that we are in this together.
Well said. Appreciate that. All right, guys, now we're taking another quick commercial break. But when we come back from that, we're going to talk a little more brass tacks in terms of the actual Orange Soil and Water Conservation District and kind of where Alaina kind of pictures that going, possible solutions that she has to offer in terms of should she be elected and how things can look. So stay tuned for that conversation. We'll be right back.
We wanted to move back home to be closer to his family. We decided to go with pods because things were stressful enough.
We weren't sure how long we were going to need storage for, so we needed something that was flexible, and then they can deliver the container to wherever we move to.
We haven't found the perfect house yet, but we're still looking.
And we are back with Alaina Slife. So Alaina, kind of talk about your experience with the Orange Soil and Water Conservation District. Have you volunteered with them before? How did you first gain knowledge of the Conservation District Board? Like, was it through conversation with someone who was involved with it? Kind of, give us that journey and what made you decide to run.
So it started when I went to the Hive, which is a think tank put on by Ideas for Us. And there I met Daisy Morales, who is currently on the board. Now she's running for, a state position. But at the time, she was, going to all these different events. And so I got to know her. She was very friendly, very outgoing, and very willing to learn about the things that I was working on. And so I got to talk with her a lot about, the Sable Trail pipeline issues. And she and I were kind of like, well, we both really care about environmental education. So she asked me, she was like, hey, could you support me in a couple different education pieces that I'm doing? And I was like, great, I love to get more experience. I love to be out there. So we put on, there was a couple different ones. One was like a smaller, like classroom setting where we talked to people at the Chinese Chamber of Commerce about the environmental impact of roadway runoff and also just like pollution in general. And so we had, you can see in one of those pictures, there's like this big plastic thing where we can explain to people how the waterways work, right? How they are connected. And so that was really great. And the students there they had not known that before. And that to me, it was really eye-opening, because it's like, we've got to just continue educating, right? There are things that we just assume people know, and that's not the case, right? We've got to bring people up to speed. So we did that. There was also an event where we just brought together all different kinds of people who were doing natural initiatives. So it was like this guy who was doing passion fruits. He was telling us all about passion fruit. There was a woman with like melaleuca. And so just like teaching about these different natural ointments and things that you can use in your life. And it was a really cool event. And we also had, the environmental education. We had Orlando Permaculture out there that did a really great presentation, talked about native plants and all the things that their group could offer. And so it was a really cool event that brought together a lot of different players and allowed people that were interested to come and kind of dabble in the ideas of environmentalism without it being like, this is what you need to do, right? But like, these are some ways that you can be involved in it, something that might spark your interest. So that was really exciting. And then I started going to the soil and water meetings. At the time, Eric Rollins was on the board, and he was doing some great initiatives like changing the caps around lakes, to say, clean up the trash, keep the waterways safe, things like that. And so like education in different ways. And it was really, really exciting. And so I've gotten to be close with some of the soil and water commissioners. And I did get to understand that like, there are things that the Soil and Water Board is like said to do, right? There's like bylaws, and, I've put that on my site, and I can explain to other people, right? Like, we're supposed to go around and people that are having soil issues, you help them solve those issues. So if there's a farmer and he's having, the topsoil is not being preserved, finding ways, working with water management districts to solve those problems together. But a lot of the work, because we haven't had a lot of people reaching out with those, and maybe that's part of it, right? Like, I do believe that we need to reach out more and say like, hey, this resource is available. But a lot of the work is like environmental conservation, and you kind of get to choose like what things I want to work on. And so it's a lot of networking. It's a lot of like getting out there in the community, building those relationships so that when initiatives need to move, you have the right players at the table to make it happen. So that's one of the cool things that I think as a soil and water commissioner, you're able to do is really think about the things that you're passionate about and help move those initiatives with the support of the community.
Got you. And, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you were able to work directly with at least two of the district supervisors. That's great to know. So I wanted to find out from you, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what is your vision in terms of, say, for instance, you get elected, what is the first project you would want to work on as a soil and water conservation district supervisor? What's your vision?
So the first thing, I got to speak with Dawn Curtis, and she has a great initiative that she's working on with the local energy companies to work in, low-income neighborhoods to help, because in low-income neighborhoods, a lot of times the energy efficiency of the property is very low. And so people are paying exorbitant amounts for their energy just because of, the way that their home is built, the like casing around the windows, things like that, right? So that's something that she's working on, and that I don't know all of the details, but I've reached out to Dawn, and I would love to learn more because I think that that's incredible.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not just energy.
Just a little bit. Go ahead.
The most impacted residents, right? So while we are working towards a greener future, let's also uplift the communities that are bearing the brunt of our decisions. And so that's one of the things. But I think that there are a lot. And can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. You came back. There we go.
So that's one of the things that I think we can start working on immediately. And there's also there are some board issues that need to be resolved, right? Like there are bylaws that need to be created. There are agreements that need to come together with the whole board. So between those two, I think that's where I'd start. But I always encourage the community to let us know what's going on so that we can get involved in the ways that are most helpful.
Awesome. And there are specific ways that Orange Soil and Water, or soil and water conservation districts in general, regardless of which county they're located in, can get the information out to the public. So obviously there's the the notification on the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. There's that. They have an event calendar, so they post there. There is the Florida Admin Register. That's like the main place where the soil and water conservation district meetings are supposed to be posted for public notice. But in addition to the more mandatory places, what thoughts do you have in terms of involving the community? Because I know that's something that you're very passionate about, and making sure that people in the community are present for the meetings. Like what other ways would you use to push, folks being involved with the soil and water district?
Thank you. So I think that although we have, these government websites, there's not as much traffic there as we would hope.
Right.
So I think that pulling in community organizations, a lot of people follow the Sierra Club. A lot of people follow, some of these bigger organizations. And then there's a ton of smaller, really, well-knit community organizations that are here in Florida that we can call on and we can work closely with to push out those meetings and to ask for involvement. And the other thing is that you have to be present at other people's meetings to be able to interact with people that are out in the community, right? I have to be there, at I was going to say a political party. Let me not say the Green Party, because they're great too, you know what I mean? But, there's ideas for us, right? Orlando permaculture. I can go to an Orlando permaculture meeting and hear about what they're working on, right? And then I can also connect with some of the people that are clearly interested in those initiatives and say, hey, just so you know, there's also, the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, and we are here to help as well. And so it's like a lot of personal outreach, right? That is a little bit more labor intensive, but it's also much more effective, right? When they know you, when they know that you're going to be there, and when they know that you're going to be looking for their face in the crowd, they're a lot more willing to attend. And so I think personal outreach is going to be vital, being at all the different community meetings, whether it's like, the Paramore community meeting, a lot of the neighborhoods also have community meetings. So it's like you have to be present in these communities for them to know what you're doing and for you to understand what they're doing as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for sharing that as well, because I do believe that's something that's going to be important going forward for any soil and water conservation district, but particularly for Orange, because I don't know, like this particular soil and water conservation district has been like it has had an interesting public image, if you will. Like there are a lot of different narratives being told. So it's just like, all right, well, let's figure out a way to kind of streamline everything. So I think community involvement is going to be the push for community involvement is going to be important. So, thank you for sharing your ideas on that. All right, so we're going to take another quick commercial break, guys, and we're going to come back and we are going to talk a little bit more with Alaina, kind of get a little bit more into some of the other causes that she's pushing for, the state of her campaign, and even that sort of controversial topic that's been going around, which is the possible abolishing of soil and water conservation districts. We'd love to get Alaina's take on that. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
I'm not picking it up. You pick it up.
I'm not picking it up.
Well, somebody's got to pick it up.
I'll pick it up. They're clean. 'Cause my hand is clean. Oh yeah, I'm Charmin clean. That's how I know they're clean.
Charmin Ultra Strong is woven like a washcloth and just cleans better.
Yeah, I'm Charmin clean.
The kid does have a point.
My hand is clean. Yeah.
Enjoy the go with Charmin. And for an extra clean finish, try Charmin Flushable Wipes.
All right, so we are back with Alaina Slife. So kind of give us your thoughts on that possibility of the abolishment of soil and water conservation districts. There have been several folks locally, but also at the state level that have talked about abolishing this. Like, give us your thoughts on that, and whether you feel it's a good idea, whether you think it doesn't make sense. Kind of, where are you with that?
The Soil and Water Commission, has a very special place, right? We are supposed to be very close with the community. And because it is a volunteer position, because it is focused on conservation, it has a very specific role. And so I am not in support of abolishing it. I think when we look at government systems, oftentimes we can say that they're not working the way that we would like them to work. But in the same way that I support public education, I support the Soil and Water Commission. Even though things are not perfect, I think saying let's just get rid of it is it's too easy, right? Like it gets rid of the actual reason for being there, and then it's just an supposedly easy fix, and then we don't have people there that are advocating for the public in that way. So I think let's look at the issues. Let's see what's working and what's not working, and let's keep what's working, and let's work on the other things, right? Like we can make it more effective. We can make it more community involved and actually pass a lot of things, actually, get a lot of initiatives moving. But we've got to focus on it, right? We're going to have to invest in it. We're going to have to get people on the board that really care and want to move things. And I think that we have some of those people on the board, right? And continue to invest in it, right? Not necessarily monetarily, but with our time, with our care, right? And to think that we're just going to take it away, it will leave the community without a resource that is incredibly helpful, has done a lot for our communities in the past. It's kind of like the EPA, right? People are like, oh, it doesn't work perfectly, so let's get rid of it. Our environment needs protection. And if we don't have people that are paying attention to that and focused on that issue, we will have issues with water quality. We will have issues with people having cancerous things in their soil, right? So we need to have dedicated elected officials to conserving our environment. And I am in no way, rosy glasses about the issues that there are, right? There is a lack of effectiveness. There is a lack of cohesion, but that just means that we need to do better, right? We need to do a better job with it, but not just erase the whole idea because it's there for a reason.
Okay, and as the follow-up to that, because one of the counter arguments for those who want to abolish it, they would say, Soil and Water has no authority, they have no budget, and they're essentially doing what a water management district would be doing, or since we have water management districts in place, why is a soil and water conservation district necessary? So kind of talk about that too, educate our audience if you can about that difference between a soil and water conservation district and the water management districts, because those entities usually have budgets, they usually have staff. So kind of talk about that.
Right. And so the water management district does have specific roles that it covers. But as a soil and water commissioner, there is more of a community network focus, right? So the water management districts are focused on specific water issues, permitting, things like that. But the soil and water commissioners are the ones that go out into the public and really engage them, right? And find out whether or not we can make things work. And it's actually, a supportive role to the water management districts. We would work closely with them on initiatives. And so I think that water management districts alone cannot bear the weight of also that level of community involvement. So we are kind of the liaison to the community and to bringing these initiatives to other entities, whether it's commissioners, and getting all the different players on the same page. So there's a possibility that conservation could be done without it, but it's all like, what are we willing to invest in conservation? How important is conservation to us, and how important is it for us to network these things together to make them really effective? And so I will say that not necessarily all commissioners who sit on the Soil and Water Board are involved in that currently, but that is a vital role that we play, and it can't be done without us, right? So we really need to have people who are the voices of the community also working in that system. And that's what the Soil and Water Commissioners, that's the place that they hold.
Thanks for breaking that down. Actually, one of the key pieces of the conversation too, that sometimes some people get it, some people don't. I've never heard it, or there's some who still don't know a lot about what the Stormwater Conservation District does, why it's important, or whether or not the folks are paid or not. So yeah, thank you for sharing that information to be able to educate our audience. That's always the goal. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention to your point about the budget, something that I have learned is that we all need money, right? There's a certain level of money that we all need. But the real power is in the people, right? You can have all the money in the world, but when you have people that care, that is more effective. That is going to get, that's what we need, right? Like money cannot solve all of our issues. We need people. We need dedicated, caring people. And so although the Soil and Water Commission does not have a specific budget that they are allowed to use, they are an incredible resource as people, right? They are the power that we need. They are the voices. They are the ones spending their time, on a volunteer basis. So there's not a lot of special interest going on, right? It's really about being involved with the community, lifting their voices, and that's where I have seen more power than, necessarily a budget, because that can be subverted one way or another. But when you have people that care, that really gets the job done.
Well said. And this leads me into the next thing that's been top of mind on the environmental side of things. Just kind of talk to us about your thoughts on the wildfires going on out on the West Coast. I mean, just heard from Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday at a press conference where he's warning the rest of the country, like, hey, what's happening here in California and along the West Coast could be a nationwide thing very soon if you don't act quickly as a nation as it relates to climate change. And then Governor Jay Inslee, he mentioned, he said, don't call these wildfires, call these climate fires. Because essentially, the consequences of climate change are what affected these between the dry climate and the warmer temperature. So sure, we're all the way across the country in the state of Florida, but kind of give me your thoughts on what's going on out there. I know climate change is something you're very passionate about, and any solutions that you would propose, even as a starting point for what's going on out there.
I think the wildfires going on in California, as well as many of the other natural disasters that our country and our world is facing, really shows that the time was yesterday. We have got to put this at the forefront of everything that we're putting out there has got to work towards the end of us addressing climate change and reversing all of the damage and pollution that we have done so far. I think we can continue to watch what's going on, but if we don't see these issues, these moments, so many things change, right? So many things, so much money be invested in coal and gas and a dirty energy past that we
You there? Alaina, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go. There you go. No problem.
Should I start over?
Yeah, you froze for a bit. Go ahead. Uh-oh. We'll get her back momentarily. She'll jump right back on the stream. This is the beauty, ladies and gentlemen, of being live or using technology from home, because everyone is at the mercy of Wi-Fi. Good old stuff. Anyway, in the meantime, though, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to come back. Oh, she's back. Awesome. There we go.
Hello?
All right. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, no.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, you're good.
Should I restart that one or?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I think when we look at what is happening in California and all around our country and all around the world, it is a moment for us to act. We have to realize that the time to address climate change was yesterday. And our health and our safety and the future health and safety of children of this world depends on us acting now. We've got to do everything we can to mitigate what we have already done and to bring this nation and this world into a green energy future. throughout my lifetime, I have watched investment and money get poured into dirty energy. And there have been, people that said we were not ready for solar. But I read a great article the other day that showed that, yes, around the country, solar energy is a very viable way to have widespread energy resources for entire municipalities. And so we've really got to take these moments as a wake-up call. Are we going to answer that call? Are we going to say that we deserve better, right? We don't want to see people's houses getting burnt, right? Or taken down by huge storms. And so what are we going to do about it? Are we going to invest all the money that we are losing through these disasters? Are we going to invest so that we don't have to keep dealing with this? Are we going to create a green energy infrastructure for our entire nation? It's possible. And that would create jobs, good paying, much more healthy jobs for people. We cannot continue to invest in dirty energy. I know that people are scared about their jobs, but we've got better jobs available for you when we move towards green energy. So I think it's heartbreaking to see what's going on with the natural disasters that we face. But it is a moment for us to act. It is a moment for us to say, yes, this is what we have right now, but in 10 years, we could be doing a lot better.
Got you. All right, guys, we are going to take a final commercial break, and then we're going to come back and kind of start to wrap up the conversation, get Alaina's, you guys, I always like to dig into the more personal side of people just to kind of show you guys how they function, what motivates them, what pushes them on the difficult days. And then also, we also want to talk about that social justice portion, because that is something that Alaina, holds near and dear as well. So we're going to get into that as we wrap up our conversation. So stay tuned, guys. This is literally a quick commercial break. Like, if you're watching this, get your literal sip of water. This is 15 seconds. We'll be right back.
At Taco John's, you can expect one thing: so good. As in quality ingredients used in tacos and burritos made just for you. Every single bite.
So good.
Expect nothing less at Taco John's.
As promised, 15 seconds. So, Alaina, kind of talk to us about what motivates you particularly on the more difficult days, right? When you're, thinking back to when you were talking about fighting again, protesting against the pipeline, and then despite what you guys, despite your efforts, it still got built. What keeps you going? What keeps you pushing forward on those difficult days?
Yes. And those difficult days come, right? And some days you feel like, why? Why am I doing this? But if you go out there, if you are in the struggle, you can look around and you can see real people that need you and that are there for you as well, right? And so what motivates me on the days that are difficult is knowing that it's not just for me, right? Why am I running for office? If it was for me, this would be a very campaign, to be honest, right? Like, I'd be like, I'm amazing, but it's not about that. I'm here for people. I'm here for this earth. I'm here for all of us, right? And there are solutions that are available to us that will uplift all of us. And I also try to really keep in mind that the life I live today is because of the work of my ancestors. I do not get to live this very free and very beautiful life without the work and dedication of those that came before me. And so everything that I am working for is on the shoulders of those that have already done this work. And so in reverence of that, I keep going, right? I'm willing to do whatever I can to make this world a more inclusive, more thoughtful, more loving, and more supportive place for all of us. And that's what keeps me going, right? And it's not always easy, but knowing that others have also sacrificed and put themselves on the line makes me know that this is a beautiful gift that this is a beautiful opportunity that I've been given. And so I'm ready to take it.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And then lastly, to close us out, I mean, anyone that follows you on Facebook or reads your threads knows that you're highly involved in social justice. You know, we've been dealing with a massive response after the death of George Floyd, but you know, even in addition to, you know, even more names that we have to remember. You know, I mean, Breonna Taylor, who came before George, you know, Salathis Melvin here locally, you know, a slew of other names. Kind of talk to us about what you feel is or are the next step or next steps that we need to take individually and nationally, you know, going forward.
It's a real moment of awakening for a lot of us. And although we knew that police brutality happened, I don't think all of us understood the extent to which Black lives are in danger for their life, right? People are being shot in the back and losing, becoming paralyzed because of what is going on. And so I think there's a lot that we need to do, right? But the solutions are there. And what's beautiful is that these solutions are not only there, but they've been tested. So there are community policing solutions that I think are really brilliant. There are very few cases that are brought to 911 that are actually violent crime or even crime, right? A lot of times we call police or we call 911 because we need help, right? Because we need someone to, because we're sick, because we're hurt, because someone with mental illness is having a moment, someone without a mental illness is having a moment. Mm-hmm. We cannot send militarized police to these situations. It is incredibly dangerous. We have seen what it does to our community, and we have got to stand up together and understand, not just say, learn about how there is a better way, right? We can have people coming to our homes for the level that we actually need it, right? And that's one thing, but I think, it's going to take a lot of understanding, right? We're all being woken up to this. And so it's a painful process. It's an uncomfortable process. And that is a lot of the work that we need to do. We need to have conversations with each other so we can understand the experiences of each other. I think a lot of the passion that I have for this issue that we're facing, the Black Lives Matter, the police brutality, because of my personal experiences. I have seen what has happened. I have seen injustice. And because of that, I have a deeper understanding, right? I have not lived a life of a Black person, so I do not have that understanding. But I do have the understanding of being around certain people and seeing how they are treated by police and seeing the difference depending upon who I'm with and what they look like. And that is not acceptable. We have the police in our communities because we feel like that makes us safer. And we all have our experiences, right? So we've got to look at statistics. We've got to look at the real truth. And the real truth is that police do not make our communities safer. Oftentimes, they make our communities more dangerous for all of us. And so we have got to take a step back. We've all got different opinions on it. So let's learn. Let's learn about what's going on. Let's learn about what the solutions are. And then let's find the solutions that fit our community. One thing that really bothers me is that in this moment, the Orange County government has decided to invest more in our highly militarized police, who are, this is by statistics, and this is a couple of years ago, but fourth in the nation for violent deaths by police officers. So when we see that clearly we have an issue here in Orange County, it is an issue. Police brutality is a problem, and it does happen far more often than any of us hear about. We cannot accept our leaders silencing our voices and choosing to not only listen, but to go against us to invest more in our police department. So we've got to really hold our leaders accountable to what they are doing right in this moment. Are they investing in initiatives that support our community? Are they putting that money, the 15 million extra dollars? We already have a highly militarized police force. And yet, we already have a militarized police force that is killing people. And yet, the solutions that I'm hearing is giving more taxpayer dollars to the police. That's unacceptable. And that money could be used for the many people who are facing housing crises, the many people who are in dire situations right now. We could be supporting communities of mothers, right? We have tons of parents right now who are having a really tough time. We could be investing in so many things that support them. And yet our leadership has chosen to invest to hire more police officers. That to me is a clear line. That's unacceptable. And so we have to work, right? Making change is not easy. It's not free. You have to work for it. And so we have to reach out to our elected leaders. Right now, Orange County is working on their budget. You are able to submit public comment for their upcoming budget hearing. Do so. Let them know how you feel. Let them know that there are other things that they could be supporting, right? And so we're going to need a lot more involvement of the people, the community. We need people to be more involved. And then if maybe that's not the avenue that's right for you, then the avenue has got to be those conversations. I'm having some really difficult conversations with some people in my life. And as I'm saying, they're not easy, right? They're not fun and they don't feel good. But it allows us to be real with each other. What are your real values? And let you understand why I care, right? I've noticed people are like, you're going out in the street to protest. It's because I've seen things, right? It's because I do have an understanding of what's going on. But no one's going to get that unless we have a conversation about it. So I really encourage anybody that feels like they want to learn more about this. I'm not going to say I know everything. I don't. But I know some things, right? And I'm willing to share my experiences, and I'm willing to get into these difficult conversations so that we can both come to more understanding, right? We're going to need more of us to take the hard path of waking up and being there for each other.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, for sure. Appreciate that. So where can people find out more about you, more about your candidacy, what you stand for? Where can people go?
So it's Facebook, right? On my Facebook, you can see candidate page, which I'm continuing to post some of the specific issues that are my platform, but also check out my personal page, right? Learn about who I am. Learn about the different things. And if you want to learn even more, reach out to me. You know, I am pretty much an open book. And I know that that's like a scary thing, but I am who I am, right? And I'm not here to be fake. I'm here to just be myself and do the best I can. And if I can do better, help me do better, right? Come, work with me so that we can all learn together. But Facebook is mostly the place, and you can learn a lot about me on there. You know, you can learn about the many things that I care about, right? It's not just one or the other. There's a lot of different communities that need support, and I'm ready to support them, and also to learn about the ones that I don't even know about yet that really need support, whether it's immigrant communities, whether it's people that are differently abled. You know, I'm still on a learning journey in those respects, and I want to learn more. So not only check me out, but reach out to me if you've got something to say, and I'm ready and willing to hear.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alaina Slife, for your time today. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Mellissa. Thank you.
No problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this edition of the FNN Politics and Power series. And of course, you guys know we tend to come on twice per week, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. So we definitely want to thank Alaina Slife for coming on the show today. And as always, hey, if you are someone that watches the show, you enjoy the series, and you have somebody you want to see me interview, shoot us an email. You can shoot us an email at news@floridanationalnews.com to find out more. And, you know, I'd love to be able to do those interviews and, you know, continue to educate everybody, not just myself, because these interviews also are insightful for me, but for sure, we want to make sure to educate members of the audience, especially in a year like this. This is election year, and local elections cause great changes in our community. So we want to make sure to continue to enlighten you as the viewer as well, and get you guys the information you need to be the informed voter that we all need. So, thank you guys as always for tuning in. And as usual, guys, I like to extend an invitation to anyone or any business owners, any entrepreneurs that are looking to advertise or sponsor. You can shoot us an email at ads@floridanationalnews.com to find out more and to get started with us. And as always, we want to make sure that you like, follow, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Just look us up at Florida National News on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And when you're on YouTube, be sure to not only click the subscribe button, but also click the little bell icon for all the notifications for all of our shows. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.